Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. Today I want to do something that I haven't done in quite a while, which is an entire garden tour. But other than I've done it in the past, like this time around, I want to break it down into 3 different videos so I can really focus on one area of the garden, really show you some nice examples, like things that went well generally in the year, some things where I'll feel like, okay, I might need to tweak it a little bit moving forward into next year, and also give you some updates of some of those things that we did together throughout the entire year, some of those projects that I did, some of the plants that I put in the ground, like how did they grow in, how are they performing, did they come to bloom, what do I generally think about it. So this is just how I want to structure it. So today in part 1, I want to start here in the front garden together with you. And then in part 2, I will focus on the midsection and the back of a garden. And then the last and third part will only spin around the slope, which is like the experimental cut flower garden, where yes, I haven't cut a single flower this year. Then this new area that I'm just creating there in the vegetable garden, because a lot is happening just really at the rear end of the garden. Well, here in the front garden, I created this area a couple of years ago, and ever since I was just tweaking a little bit, but it kind of works. It kind of does its thing, and this is the nice thing about the front garden in general. So if you see, like you're standing on the driveway right now, and then the house is to my left, and the entire front garden basically opens up here into my back, and you can tell that at this time of the year a lot of the things are still looking quite nice, especially the trees here, like the prunus, the plum tree, the ornamental plum tree with the red foliage. All the foliage is still on the tree. It is a standard. And then in the back there is a willow, and later on in the year I might share again a video with you on how I cut some of the trees in the garden. And then comes a shocker on how much I take that willow down. An average every year about 1.5 to 2 meters I take it down. It's so vigorous. It grows just incredibly beautiful. If we just look at some of those areas here, for example, this tiny miniature garden here at the front, I think I never really showed it to you in detail. One thing that is here is a Japanese cherry tree. Beautiful flowers, and I shared a video with you earlier on in the year on how to cut it, because unfortunately my 2 ornamental cherry trees that I have here, they suffer from a certain kind of blight, which means I always need to cut them back hard immediately after those leaves start to wilt, and I am quite successful with that. So they always come back with a lot of fresh, good growth. And even though it was quite a tragic sight earlier on in the year, especially after I cut everything back, it really came back with a lot of vigor, and it looks really lovely now. And you can see a lot of buds are forming here, so it's definitely going to flower if we're not going to have a very late frosty spring, obviously. One little side note is the front garden obviously is facing the road. So in your back there is a street, and every now and then you will hear the sound of cars. I'm really sorry for that. Try to speed it up a little bit here. One thing that I did is also in an earlier video, I planted some lavender plants here, and they were tiny when I put them in the ground. They flowered, they really start to look nice. Now I haven't cut them back this year in August. August is the time when you would normally come in and cut it. So what I will do at one point is just strip back all of these bent flower heads, and then maybe just like snip off some of the really long spindly branches, but really try to make sure that they have the ability to branch out. And the next year August is a time when I come in here and really cut them to make sure that they grow compact and build a nice framework, because last time I kind of forgot about it every single year, and this is the reason why I absolutely needed to replace those lavender plants. Some of the things that I think just work really nicely, and is a good example on how you can build a smaller border or smaller area like this, is I have like one ornamental tree in there. And then in the front row, I've got some sedum. This is a variety called Herbstfreude. They already stopped flowering, but they still have a nice structure. They have really nice foliage. So it's one of those varieties that hardly ever gets powdery mildew. Next to it is Snappeter. This is Walker Slow. This is my favorite variety that I so far only grow in my garden. But next year I want to try out some other Snappeter varieties as well. Then I've got a small growing miscanthus here, kind of just like almost going into the second tier of the planting. And then here I've got 2 different varieties of asters. This is Schöne von Dietlikon, which you will see from the front garden throughout the entire garden. So I always have my focal plants. And next to it is another focal plant. This is Aster Asron. This is like the good old faithful. It grows everywhere. It grows almost in double shade, which is really dry. It thrives in full sun, which could be dry as well. So this is definitely one of my favorite varieties. It can be a little bit invasive, but as we tour through the garden, you will definitely see this variety more and more often. Then in the back, I've got a Bistarta, which flowered white earlier on in the year, and even the spent flower heads, I think they still have a nice texture in the back there. So if I just walk in and show you what I'm talking about. So these here, they are definitely brown and dead as a doornail by now. There's still some green foliage here, but in general, I think that they have a nice winter structure, and also in combination with this beautiful Calamagrostis grass here. This is a variety called Carl Förster. So as a miniature garden, I really enjoy this area here, and I think so far I never really talked about this kind of nice small miniature garden that everybody can recreate in their own garden. If we continue walking, I already talked a little bit about the trees. There is sun out. It's beautiful weather, which means that there might be some sunflowers. One plant I really want to talk about is this beauty here. Is a front row. This is a panacetum. I think it is red hat. Surprisingly, it flowers quite brown, which surprised me as well. But I remember that last year I planted only red hats, and I think that they are really wonderful. Oh, no, red hat. Red Mohican something. I give you the name down below the video. I can research it. I still have the pot, so I can give you the name. But what is quite intriguing is there are two plants here. And this one here grew beautifully. I mean, it's lush, it's vigorous, it is beautiful in the front row, but it doesn't produce any flowers, while the one just next to it grew to a tremendous size. It gets a little more sun, maybe that is a reason, and it put up all these beautiful flowers, a wonderful half dome shape. So I think it's one of those plants that's really nice to frame your lawn and your edges, because it's very soft, it spills over. It's very easy also to cut the lawn here. So if you come here with your mower, it's not difficult because you don't need to maneuver, because it's so soft you can just gently drive around here, and easy as that, and it goes. So definitely a beautiful, beautiful grass. And I was really surprised on how much vigor it can put on, because it said on the label it grows up to at most 70 centimeters. And this year is over 1 meter. So definitely it's very happy here in this position. I can't wait to see what it does next year. Next to it, you can see some plants already start to peter out. So I had some zinnias here. This is a variety called Green Envy, and they were really beautiful throughout the summertime. Unfortunately, zinnias here, they are definitely attracting a lot of slugs and snails. I had one pink one here as well. Last year, the pink one was an accident, and this one I put it in here as a purpose because I really enjoyed it. But they start to peter out. Asters here. Here I was dealing a little bit with powdery mildew, unfortunately. But this is the only area where the asters were not looking so amazing. Well, Aster astron, again, amazing. It's always vigorous. It always grows amazing. So you can just throw it wherever you want in your garden, and I guarantee you'll be happy with that. If we just look at this entire area here in the back, I've hardly done a thing this year. I planted maybe a little bit, but in general, things are just doing and performing, which is wonderful. So again, a wonderful plant for the front row is Epimedium. This is Sulphurium, if I'm not wrong. This has like really nice sulphury yellow flowers very earlier on in the year. It is a beautiful winter structure because the foliage stays kind of like this. It has a little bit of a bronzy reddish tone throughout the winter month, and then in about March time it dries off, and then you can just come in with your electric shears and just really cut it back to the ground, and then all the flowers come, and within a month you will have this wonderful green carpet and pillow effect again, which is really beautiful, I think. Grasses, it is just the time for grasses. Now they're really at their best. Unfortunately here I also have Panacetum, which is a variety called Harmon. And every year I kind of struggle with them here. They are just not performing as amazing. So maybe next year, this is one of those grasses that I will replace by the one that I just showed you there, because the other Panacetum variety grows a lot better in the garden than this one here. So that was one of the things where I had an eye on this year, and it's like really not performing amazing again. But in general, grasses are looking really fantastic. Calamagrostis is here. There is another Calamagrostis there, two different varieties. The Miscanthus looks nice. So all the grasses are in full bloom. They're really in their prime now, and even like a Calamagrostis grass like the Carl Förster, once it starts to bronze off, it really still has this wonderful upright growing habit. And I think this is really nice amongst all these textures that you see here in a planting like this. The same planting kind of like continues here at this side of the border. So a lot of the asters are here, grasses, Nepeta. I really need to come there next year with Aster astrum because it's so vigorous. It starts to grow into the Nepeta, and something that I really don't want, but it's super easy. It has runners that are quite shallow, so I can just come in with a spade next year and really define the shape on how I want these asters to grow, and take all the runners out, and off they go onto the compost heap, probably because by now I have got so many of these asters, like I really don't know what to do with them anymore. Then I think which is really nice is also this area here just flanking the house. This is fully south facing. What is quite interesting is that normally I'm really good with sedum and especially the variety called Matrona. And this is this one here. And it looked really nice throughout the entire year. It flowered beautifully. But then I would say almost 80% of my Matronas this year, they happened to get powdery mildew and the leaves dropped very, very fast. So they're really looking sad. They were not nice. I don't know what the problem is because honestly, always, every single year, they look fantastic here. But still, even now, when the flowers are spent, you can still see a little bit of blush here and there. But they have these really nice disc-shaped flower heads, and as they dry off, again, a really nice winter structure for the garden. Nappitas looking nice. Here's an area where I planted Nymphophea together with you. And the Nymphophea, they were not flowering this year, but they still look nice. So I can see if you just come a little closer, just try to make some room here. You can see that when I planted them, there was just one stem here and they have side branches now. So they're really happy. They like this area. Apparently both plants looks really nice here. So I hope that next year they will come with some flowers. And I planted them here on purpose because I've got more the Panacetum grass here and then the Nymphophea also have kind of like a leafy texture. So I think it's just a nice planting neighbor. So you have the real grass and then you've got the Nymphophea that will even produce blooms, which is really beautiful. Sneaky little plant here, Euphorbia. This is Mediterranean Euphorbia that I honestly only have in the back there. And they really love it. They are starting to self-seed. They are evergreen throughout the entire winter. So they are a great structure for the winter garden. And I always say like, I want to have the same effect that I have here on the other side of the border. And I will do it. So I've got a lot of offspring, like these really robust, perfect looking plants here. So this is one of those that I will transplant into the other side. So once March time comes and I will come in here and cut everything back hard into the bare bones of the plant. And it's always good to have a nice winter structure and something what I think personally I can still improve my gardening skills at. But I'm getting there. I think I was introducing more and more things that are nice for an early spring or a winter garden. And that Euphorbia is definitely one of those plants. By the way, Alfie's with us today. She's just down there. She has probably a toy or something. I'm not sure. She has a walnut. So anything can be a toy. And this time of the year, walnuts are definitely nice because there are plenty of them. So she's going to follow us pretty much throughout the entire video now with this nice slimy walnut. Very interesting again, the same grass that I showed you, the Panacetum. One of them came to bloom, two of them didn't, but whatever, they're still nice. I think they're just nice in the planting here with more Euphorbia, with one rose that decided to come to bloom really nice again. I don't know the variety. Yellow flowering. So for the front garden, my color scheme in general is that I focus on shades of like normally sulfur yellow mixed with tones of blue like purple, violet, and then the rose, which is yellow. So that was here before I came and I can't remove it. So there's like sentimental value to it. Some of the things where I think they worked out extremely well this year is kind of trying to improve this little area here. First thing that I did very early on in the year is I bought this really nice urn and finally started utilizing this lovely concrete pillar that was here. Because there was always a pillar, it had no function, it was just there. It was really hard trying to hide it somehow. And I thought, you know what, since it's there, just try to make it look as if it was meant to be there. So I bought the urn, sprayed the pillar, put some plants in here. I was not good with my watering, so don't look too close. But in general, I think it is just looking fairly nice. And throughout summer, I had petunias in here, and that definitely made me really happy. So really, I think a nice way on how to improve this tiny corner here, and especially the wisteria is something that I'm kind of proud of this year because I had a very funny support system last year still in there, which people say it looks as if I have a KGB spy antenna built of Hazel's canes because it kind of looked really random. And it was working for 2-3 years and then a storm came, it all collapsed, it was not good. And I thought, okay, now I'll do a proper job. So in one of my winter videos, I think it was, pretty much like January time, I suppose, I built this lovely structure here made of white wood, and I think it works nice. I think just visually it works extremely nice with a swing bench that you just saw in the front garden. It works nice with the colors of the house, and it just supports the wonderful structure here of the wisteria. One thing that I always do is I come in and I try to cut back all the leaves or all the branches that try to come out here from the main trunk. and it goes better. Like there are less and less appearing, and I'm quite optimistic that in a couple of years from now, this will be really nice and sturdy and thick. And then I will only have like the top canopy as a nice crown here. And I also like the shape that it starts to grow outwards. I could come in and trim it back a little bit, but I think this is one of the jobs that I will do in February, because normally you always cut your wisteria in February and July. Those are the 2 months where you always want to get in and cut them back. But in general, I think it's a nice little corner here, just with the urn, the wisteria, the asters, then this big topiary piece here that flanks the entry to the midsection of the garden. So considering on how this area looked last year, it was very random. I haven't done a lot, and now I finally focused on it, and I think, yeah, it really starts to look nice also sitting on the upper terrace. You have a really nice vista from up there into the front garden, which is wonderful. This little corner here, this is kind of like more of a summer garden. There is not too much happening now because, for example, in the front row, I have beautiful hostas, a variety called Patriot, which has a leaf variegation of green and white. And this is also a little bit on how I focus in this darker corner of the front garden. Just to light it up, I was playing with white and green in a combination, because white is just a color that brings naturally light and a little more joy into a corner like this. But then again, winter structure, box sphere, looks fantastic. I cut it in one of my previous videos where I showed you how to cut box spheres. And one thing that you can always do and how to check is your box sphere happy is you just come in and look into the center and see how much greenery it has. And if I just open it up, you can see that it is green really deep into the center, even when no light comes in. So this is always a good sign that the box sphere is definitely happy. I don't have box blight, I don't have caterpillars, thank God. So all the box that I grow in my garden is definitely vigorous and very happy in general. Then the hydrangeas, really nice still at this time of the year. The paniculata ones, they produce quite big flower heads, considering that I don't really cut them back hard. They were at first pure white, then they aged to this beautiful jade green, and then like into a little bit this like pinkish or like blush tone, and now they dry off. But as they dry off, last year I utilized the complete dried heads for some Christmas decoration because they're really nice, and maybe this time around I will utilize some of them again because I've got quite a lot of those, and they're really nice. And I think it's just beautiful to bring this element of nature and garden into your Christmas decoration as well. So really enjoyed that last year. Phlox had a lot of seed. One word about like when you have phlox in your garden and they produce seed. This is a wide variety. And I kind of just like, for the fun of it, I still like to collect the seed and sow them and see what comes out of it. Because sometimes you have wonderful surprises, but if you sow phlox from seed, they will not come true to the original plant. This is just what happens naturally. Like a white phlox like this one, sometimes you have a blue offspring, or like a white one with a pink center. But it is kind of fun, and you never know what happens. And really, I had some really wonderful plants suddenly that I even grew in other areas of the garden because I really enjoy them so much. And this one came from Phlox David. Even this is not Phlox David. This grows taller, more vigorous, but it's still pure white. So I haven't divided it yet, but I think in a year or 2 years, when it's grown even bigger in size, I'm going to start to divide it because I think it's perfect, and I want to have more of this variety, which is completely an unknown variety actually, because it came from seed. In the front row, there is more sedum, and this is a wonderful variety. This is a variety called Stardust. It flowers white, but occasionally, and I showed you last year, some of these, they will come as a pinkish tone, a blush pink tone, which is wonderful. But what is even nicer now, and you get to see it a little bit here already, the foliage in autumn changes color to yellow. So I think in 2 weeks from now, this will be a carpet of gold, which is really nice. So for 2 weeks, all these like fleshy thick leaves, they will be golden. And what is wonderful about this variety is you can tell it's vigorous. It has no powdery mildew, it's very happy, and it grows in partly shade. So even though when you always say that sedum only grows in full sun, there are varieties, and I kind of tested it, they also grow very happily in partly shade, and Stardust is definitely one of them. Unfortunately, I showed you in some of my previous videos, this is a sumac tree, and now it's stopped with its autumnal color. Still get to see it a little bit here maybe, but I showed you in some of my other videos that I just shared with you like 2-3 weeks ago, always in my back, or just I gave you a closer look. This was an orange firework. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a great structure, I think, and I just love both of these plants here, because now if we continue walking, then we get into the midsection of the garden. And here on the left, I have the evergreen topiary. And then on the right, here is a sumac, which is really nice for a long period of the year because the foliage is feathery and nice. It has really intriguing flowers, a little whitish, and then you have these fruits, kind of like long reddish cones, and then for 2 to 3 weeks you have an amazing firework of color with the autumnal foliage. So really happy with this, and that is it for part 1 of the video. This is a front garden, and I hope that I really managed to get a little bit more into detail and just tour you around and show you what I grow here, and really wanted to show you things that I did together with you this year. So next time around, I'm going to take you with me into the midsection of the garden, the back of the garden, which is filled by sun at this moment. So I hope you enjoyed part 1, and I would love to welcome you for part 2 next time around. Take care, guys. Bye.